Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. John Kelly, profiler here, and welcome. Welcome to our today's show. I think you're going to find it very interesting. Please try and hang in there with us. It's called Liars for Hire, and we're talking about the Delphi trial. And I'm going to be focusing on expert type witnesses, not particularly the witnesses that were at the Delphi trial and Richard Allen's trial. And, speaking for the defense, I'm just talking in general about experts. And that's what I think you're going to find pretty interesting, but you probably know it already. At this time, I would like to give our deepest condolences from all of us to the friends and families of Libby and Abby. God bless them all. It's such a sad situation, and they're undergoing a very horrendous and traumatic trial. So, our best to them. Also, if you like what we're doing, please subscribe and like. And also to you production companies out there that follow us, please feel free to get in touch with us. We've got some treatments we'd like to run by you and get them while you can because they won't last forever. They'll be gone. Somebody will pick them up, and I'm sure you'll like to read some of these. So anyway, with that being said, the last thing I have to do is, give our disclaimer about Richard Allen. Richard Allen is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. He has the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. Okay. And we'll have to wait and see for that. I don't think we're going to be waiting much longer. Very interesting. What I have to talk about, Pam, and you've heard me mention this before, is the elimination, how to find
Right.
the suspect by going through the process of elimination, trying to take people of interest and eliminate them. And if you get a person of interest that you cannot eliminate, then the case automatically gets better.
Yeah.
Instead of embellishing and jumping on 3 or 4 different people at the same time and saying, well, this one has this one has that, this is similar, that's similar, that's similar. Let's look over here. The best thing to do is focus on eliminating them. Because if you try to eliminate them, for instance, where were they at such and such a time?
Mm-hmm.
That's a quick elimination. You can clear a person very quick with that. Because if they weren't there and they were somewhere else and have an alibi, certainly they're not your guy. So you move on to the next one, right? But there's always this process of elimination that if you go through it, once you find the person of interest that fits and may be the suspect or presumably is the suspect, the case will only get better and stronger. Right?
Right.
Now, Frank Adamson, who is, as far as I'm concerned, one of the best homicide detectives ever in the country, he's my mentor. He mentored me. He taught me this. He taught me this. He pounded it into my head. And of course, we know that he ran the Green River case. They captured the Green River killer, Gary Ridgway. And he was chief and commander of all the detectives that were involved in the whole case. And he worked the Bundy case at the end, when that was ending and Bundy was down in Florida pleading for his life, right? That's when Frank took that case over. So you have to understand that elimination is the key, not embellishment, because embellishment is very bad. And a lot of different cops, different law enforcement people get caught up in this. This is the guy, this is the guy, this is the guy. And turns out not to be the guy, or an innocent person gets put away in prison. So it's eliminating the suspect on the information you have, right? We're not the suspect, sorry, the person of interest who would be becoming the suspect if the direction heads that way. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about, because we're talking about Richard Allen here, obviously, okay? We're talking about Richard Allen, you know, putting himself on the bridge, okay? Putting himself on the trails. So how do we eliminate Richard Allen from not being on the bridge or the trails? We want to eliminate this guy, right?
Mhm.
So how can we eliminate him when he said that he was there?
You're asking me? You
Can't.
can't, because he
You can't
not only
eliminate him.
not only did he put himself there the couple of days after, right, when he went down and voluntarily gave a statement that was kind of didn't come to light till several years later, but he also put himself there, you know, afterwards. So
Yeah, he put
at,
himself there
at the
and
same time, yeah,
at the same time.
yeah,
Okay. So you can't eliminate him there because and say he wasn't there because
right,
he says he was there. Okay.
right,
You can't eliminate him on that. Okay. So then he mentions he's dressed similarly to Bridge Guy, that he was dressed similarly. I'm sorry, folks. You get that one, right? But he's similar. Okay, we'll use that. Dressed similar to Bridge Guy. Okay, so I mean, bottom line, you know, now you have him saying he's there. Now you're saying he's dressed similar to Bridge Guy. Okay, so now we can't eliminate him on that. All right. So now they find a round, an unspent round between Abby and Libby's bodies. Well, that round matches a gun he owns. So we cannot eliminate him for the gun, and certainly can't eliminate him for the round because the round supposedly matches the gun.
right.
So how do you eliminate him, or how does he eliminate himself? I mean, it's okay. I'm trying to eliminate this guy. Give me something here, right? And we're talking to you, our fans too, and our audience. Please give us your comments here. Tell us how to do it. You know. So then the next thing we have is, we have, this whole thing out there from the psychologist where he makes all these admissions, right?
Right.
And, so now we can't eliminate him based on his admissions. At least I can't. Okay. I mean, we can cause it, he had a psychotic break or something like that, but 60 different admissions. Okay. And saying things in some of those admissions that only the killer would know. And the other thing, like I asked you the other day, who the heck goes into prison and makes admissions? I've never heard of anybody having a psychotic break that makes admissions that weren't true. Okay. I mean, because I've seen them make them out of guilt or to get it over with or to move on or to admit to, because they want to push the blame. Okay, I did it. I was there, but I had this one help me because they got some kind of deal or something, you know? So, I mean, I can understand that he's making these different admissions, but all over the place. I mean, he's the only person I ever heard of that went to jail. I'm sorry, prison. That and we're going to bring that up too. Went to prison and in the course of being in prison, admitted his guilt 60 times to something he didn't do. Okay, so that's a little something troubling to me, bothering me, and we can have I believe possible psychosis in there, but I mean, it's real hard for me to pin that down when the psychosis seems to have some truth involved in it that only the killer would know. You follow me?
Right.
So it's you know, it's kind of a very strange situation. And you know, he talks about um, you know, he wanted to rape the girls. He mentioned that, but then he saw a van or yeah, a van, and there was a van. We were understanding there. Only the killer would know that, right?
Mhm.
And you know, he didn't want to. And please catch me if I'm wrong here. I'm off on something. He didn't want the girls to suffer, so he killed the girls. Not raped them, but he killed them so they wouldn't suffer. And supposedly the girls were not essayed. Okay.
Mhm.
But if you find a girl's clothes off, her throat slit, clothes missing, she's naked or just about naked, they're dead. You're who in their right mind could say, and I know nobody from my field could say it, or you know, anybody that's a therapist, that they were not SA'd, that this
Right.
girl was not SA'd. I mean, that is a perfect picture of a girl that was violated to the most extreme point,
Right.
right? I mean, do you have anything on that? Do you have any ideas on that?
You want me to that or because can I go back
Uh,
to the confessions?
Everything,
Okay.
everything's open game here. Do you talk about what you want to
Okay.
talk about? Now, the other thing too, folks, is Pam Bogart. See, that's my mind. In the beginning, I should have mentioned Pam Bogart is an investigator and researcher that has worked for probation, the probation department, been to court many times, seen many criminals over the years, seen many victims and victims' families over the years. And she's an expert. Her expertise is second to none when it comes to this. So please listen. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to bring up on this the amount of confessions is the thing that's you know, to pay attention to here because he didn't confess when he got interrogated. Usually people confess when you say under interrogation. And when he was brought down to the police station several times before he was arrested, he didn't confess. You know, if they were badgering him, usually isn't that when a person, you know, feels compelled maybe to confess. Second of all, didn't he start confessing in prison after he got the discovery from his attorneys? And this I also, you know, kind of been, you know, following the case, and these are just some points I wanted to bring up. I mean, this is just from what I've been hearing from people who have sat in the courtroom, the YouTubers, and are taking notes that, you know, that when he started reading the Bible, he also his first confession sort of came after that. And also, right? And then I kind of lost my thought here what I was going to say. I was going to bring up another oh, also his demeanor when he was confessing, because you know the court was listening to him on tape, right? His confessions. A lot of people were commenting that he sounded very calm. He did not sound like it disoriented or his thoughts were like, you know, all over the place. I don't know. I'm not, you know, I'm not saying he didn't have psychotic episodes, you know. You know, that we already know that he suffered from, you know, anxiety, depression. I can't speak on that. I'm not a therapist. And the therapist, both of them, the one for the defense and also the one for well, she wasn't for the prosecution, but she was his therapist. Both of them kind of came up with the same, you know, diagnosis for him, just a little bit different. So, anyway.
Yeah, and the psychologist felt that he could be manipulating,
Yes, his psychologist, yeah, right. The
you
one
know?
she was familiar with him. She saw him every day. She developed
Well,
a relationship with him, right? So,
absolutely.
right,
And when you realize that he is not the only prisoner that she has to see,
right.
to talk to. So this woman, who is a prison psychologist, has seen a lot of prisoners. They usually do.
Mm-hmm.
And they usually can pick it up like any of us can that have a job. After a while, it becomes secondhand. You know who's bullshitting you and you know who isn't.
All
Or
right.
you have a good idea that there's manipulation taking place somewhere along the line. Something's off. Okay. So I have to have belief in her because I know a couple of prison psychologists, and well, they're retired now, but back in the day, I mean, people go into prison with one thing in mind, usually 99% of the time, how to get out of there. They want out, right? And admitting you're guilty is definitely not a way out. Now, that may be bizarre in itself, right? Or could it be, well, geez, I've already said, I'm guilty, and I told the psychologist my story, but wait a second. Can there be a way to manipulate this? You know what I mean? I mean, so I have some concerns about this whole situation. I don't know of anybody that ever had a psychotic break that did that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, what do you think could prompt someone to admit their guilt that many times?
Well, I'll tell you what I do believe is because he admitted to a history, and I think we all know there's some history of depression and anxiety that he was carrying around with him, and anxiety goes along with depression 99% of the time. It's like
Right.
ham and cheese; they go together. But the other thing is, was it the depression itself, major depression, that caused him to have a psychotic break if he had a psychotic break? Or was it the guilt? Because severe guilt, absolutely can cause depression, you know?
Exactly.
And him saying, I may not be able to be with my family now, but by being with Christ or seeking God or whatever, that's the Bible. When he was reading the Bible, right, or done with the Bible, whatever, I don't know what part of that it was. You know, he's trying to come clean, and he believes he'll be with his family in the afterlife. He might not be with them now, and he misses them. And I believe that being without them, missing them, and everything else really too was involved in that depression, and probably a psychosis if there was a psychosis. But the guilt itself, absolutely realizing you're the reason for this,
Well, I was
could
just,
really compound it. Go ahead.
I was also going to say, John, that, from listening to some of the psychologists speak, that, one of his major things he dealt with in life was abandonment, right? And
Right.
so where else are you going to feel abandoned the most if when you're locked up, right?
Well,
And
that's
you kind of want to know that your family is going to be by your side. So, because then you're totally abandoned. If they sort of like move away from you, then you're totally by yourself.
and that's an excellent point. That's an excellent point because at this stage of the game, he is abandoned by his family, but not intentionally abandoned by his family. All
Right,
right. But it's by his actions, could be by his actions,
right.
that he's abandoned by his family.
right,
Now, if he's innocent,
right,
then it's not by his actions.
right,
But if he isn't innocent, he believes he's guilty, right? Then it's because of his deeds that caused his abandonment. You know
right,
what I'm saying? I mean, that's, we're getting really kind of Freudian and psychoanalytical here, but bottom line is that's the truth. I mean, because in his mind, he has to understand, and it doesn't mean, regardless of the reason for abandonment, it doesn't make it hurt any less. Okay. But to process it, and as little time goes on, you can understand that, you know, I was not abandoned by my family specifically. It is my situation that has me abandoned, that caused the abandonment. Okay. Am
right,
I responsible for my situation? Right.
right, right. No, exactly.
So it is very interesting. It is very interesting. I'm gonna go back and listen to that fellow. Want to give him a plug? What's their names? John and what's it?
Oh,
Hidden Truth
Hidden
or
True Crime, Hidden True
Hidden
Crime.
True Crime? Yeah, Hidden True Crime. They're pretty
Dr.
good.
John
Yeah,
Matthias, yeah,
Dr. John Matthias. Yeah, and his wife.
and his wife Lauren, yeah,
And Lauren, right?
who happens to be in the courtroom, you
Yeah,
know,
she's. Oh, that's a rough job. Okay.
yeah.
So I mean, they're great. They got a lot of good stuff out there. Believe me, Pam is all over them. She knows she wouldn't bring it to the table. I'll tell you right now. And I've seen bits and pieces that I like. And I
And
haven't had the time to watch the whole show. It's pretty long, some of their shows.
and there probably is a terrible amount of conflict would be going on in somebody's mind, right? That sort of would feel guilt about this and want to admit it, and then have to, I'm sure his attorneys, anybody's attorney would be telling them, not, don't do that. You know what I mean? Because it's not good for your case. I mean, any defense attorney would do that. So you have to be in real conflict.
Yeah, you definitely have to be in real conflict. That's why, another point I wanted to talk about the show and calling it Liars for Hire is because, I've been around experts a lot. I've done expert work myself. I've been around a lot of experts, and the going rate, depending on what the case is, depending on who you are, how famous you are, how good you are, all depends on how good you are. This is important for the audience to understand. You get 300, 400 an hour, 500 expenses, along with expenses, 500 an hour, even depending on who you are and what you're going to bring to the table, right?
Mhm.
And the attorneys vet everybody out. They want to have the best experts they can have. No harm in that. So the thing of it is, sometimes you get experts that fudge things. They just fudge it. And they want to win that case because they have a career now, and their career is being an expert witness. And to move on to the next part of being an expert witness, which is their next case, they want to usually have a good referral from the case they've already worked, especially a high profile case like this one. Okay. That's something I think that is very, very important here, that they want to uh, excel in this high profile case, these experts. And they're getting paid a good buck, I'm sure, for this, right? So I'm 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 looking at it, and I want to believe that they're 100% authentic, but I have some doubts. I'm just going to put it like that. I have some doubts in the authenticity of the whole thing, because you know really, when I hear about Abby having headphones too, it's the first I've ever heard about this.
Yeah,
I don't know. Have you heard anything about it?
yeah, just recently.
So I'm a little concerned with that and how they know that. Um, I just have a problem with that because I can understand it, but I just have a problem with it that this is the first we've heard about it, and the state police or no one's ever brought that up. I mean, for no great reason that I know. Maybe there's more to be revealed. We'll
Well, isn't
see.
this the first time we're hearing about a van too in the trial?
Yeah,
Because
that's
I don't remember hearing about a van before.
that's true. None of us knew. I mean, they kept this tight. They kept this case tight. You know. Then
Hmm.
I heard somebody on there say, there really isn't. There really isn't any kind of evidence that has to be tested, any kind of scientific, I think the word scientific evidence or whatever, or forensic evidence, it has to be tested or whatever. But there was that casing, the unspent cartridge.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
all scientific. That's all science.
Hmm.
I mean, there's no question about it. Then the other part of it is looking at um, that whole van situation. I mean, only the killer would know there was a van. Abby and Libby may have known it too, but they're dead, right?
Right.
So we've got to take that into consideration. Okay. Then we have his recordings that were recorded, and we have the state policeman taking the stand who overheard all the recordings, went over and over and over the hours of recording
Right.
between him and whoever he talked to on the phone, except his attorneys. They can't listen in when he's talking to his attorneys.
Right.
And bottom line there is that, this man is very familiar at this point in time with their voices.
Hmm.
This guy knows what everybody's voice sounds like that he listened to. And he was his opinion, if I have it correctly, and I know I do, that he believed that was Richard Allen's voice. Bridge guy was Richard Allen's voice, the same voice. And, he took that on the stand with them, and
Hmm.
he took a note to that. So that's very interesting too. Then the other thing I want to bring out is this murder in general. This is a major murder case. This is two young girls being killed, we think in broad daylight, pretty much sure of that, abducted from a bridge, probably with a gun, taken to the second location, the kill zone, and their necks slit and cut open, and they bleed to death. This is a major murder case in Indiana. It is Indiana's biggest whodunit. This is Delphi, Indiana, folks. This is what you've got to understand. How many homicides like this has Delphi, Indiana ever seen? Probably none. Probably none specifically like this. Guarantee there were homicides, not like this. Okay. So this is not what you see on TV, like the Special Victims Unit, New York City, or some other high powered law enforcement show in a major city that sees murders every single day. Sees something like this maybe once a month, but sees it continually throughout the course of a year, 2 years, 3 years. Okay. They are not equipped. They do not have the experience right off the hand to deal with this type of murder or killer or killer. In fact, we had one of the major law enforcement players come out and say right off the hop, he doesn't think the public's in any danger. You know, he thinks that this was more of a targeted situation or something. Without knowing who the killer is. I mean, in the towns, people are scared to death they have a killer on the loose and they don't know who it is. I mean, that whole town's being traumatized. They don't make a statement like that, but he doesn't have the experience. Most of these guys don't have the experience. And I don't blame them for it because, you know, how many murder cases have they worked, let alone how many murder cases like this have they worked? I mean, this is a very, very tough case to work for anybody, any experienced detective. I don't care who they are. Okay. Then there's other questions about him. Well, okay, now he's arrested. How come he doesn't go to jail like everybody else? How come they put him in a prison? Well, why would you take a chance of putting him in jail? The easiest access to him is in jail. That's the easiest place to kill this guy, is in the jail, the county jail. And who in there, what inmate in there hasn't heard about Libby and Abby? They hate child killers, most of them. He'd be a walking target in there. He wouldn't have a shot for anybody that wanted to get at him because it's too easy in general public, you know, to get in there with the population, the public population in there. It's just very, very hard. Okay. And, you know, it's another thing to think about. What about him killing himself? It's a lot easier to kill yourself in county jail than it is to kill yourself in prison because prison is set up for it. You have the psychiatrist there, you have the psychologist there, you know, and then you have the whole setup of putting a person into isolation. I mean, inside the prison, you have the perfect isolation. There's no question about it because you have the cameras, you have the people there. You know, it's not like throwing somebody in the hole, you know, that did something wrong. I mean, you have them in complete isolation. What do you think about that whole isolation kind of piece, Pam?
Well, they said he was in isolation for like 19 months, right? And that's usually somebody only stays in there for a few months or so many days. I don't know if I'm correct on that, but I don't know what other option they had. Like you say, he had to be in protective custody for his own well-being. I think from what I remember hearing is that they did, you know, he was allowed recreation. I'm sure they had to do it at a time when there was nobody else around, you know, with the, you know, guards taking him out, but I think he refused that several times. He also refused the TV, I remember hearing. Um, I don't know what other solution would there be. If he, you know, he can't be with regular prisoners, you know, he has to be in protective custody. So how else could he be in protective custody? Is there any other way?
Not unless he's in a secured environment.
Mhm.
And obviously, that prison out there, you know, a lot of people talk really bad about it.
Right,
I've seen some people say it's not that bad. Okay.
right.
But when you put a person in that kind of isolation, yeah, you can have problems. There's no question about it. But there's been people that have been in solitary confinement for years. They keep going back, and you know they don't have psychotic breaks.
And
Okay.
they also had a therapist talking to him every day, from what I understand. So, you know,
Absolutely.
I think she
Throughout the whole
visited him
thing.
every day and took notes. And so if anything was to happen or, you know, they would address it.
Yeah,
I don't,
and they had like some kind of buddy system in the prison that you don't have in the county, where they have trustees probably who are trusted by the prison that you know their job during the day have nothing else better to do is to spend time with someone who might be depressed
Mhm.
and might be a threat to themselves, and unlive themselves or try to unlive themselves. So, these guys check in every 15 minutes or so. Somebody checks in, just to talk to him a little bit, so he's not so isolated. So
Right.
the isolation there, the solitary there that he was in, I mean, there's a lot worse. I'm sure there's better. I'm sure none of it's nice. But I also understand he could have phone calls when he needed to make them. I understand, and that means talk to his family when he wanted to. I understand he had a tablet in there. I'm not
Yeah.
very computer illiterate, so I don't know what the hell, he'd be doing with the tablet or how that would work, and if they allow emails or whatever goes on there. But the point I want to make is there's been people that have done a lot of time in isolation or solitary confinement or in the hole that have not gone psycho. I mean, who have not had a psychotic break, right? So I
Right.
mean, I take this all into consideration, and I think the safest place for him that the authorities wanted, because the authorities finally believe they got their guy. They don't want anything to happen to this guy. You know what I mean? They don't want some crazy jitterbug in, the county jail or something to kill this guy, before they have a chance to try him to find out if he's innocent or guilty, because they feel he's guilty and they finally got their man. Like I said, this is one of the biggest cases, if ever, biggest whodunits in Indiana history. So, they're gonna be very careful with him. He's very important to them, very
Right.
important to them to try to escape. They don't want him to die under their guard after all this and all these years later,
And
trying to catch this guy.
he wasn't, there was no reports of him being mistreated, right? Like just in isolation, but not mistreated, right? I mean that,
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't see any mistreatment at all. I mean, I don't know if he was ever, there's some word out there he may have spit on guards and been tased or spit on guards and a pepper spray shot on in his face. I mean, I've heard stuff like that, but that's if he was really going over the edge with a lot of anger and rage, uh, where he started taking it out on, the guards, his captors or whatever. And then at that point in time, they have certain rules and regulations they work by, not
right,
saying they'll do it or do it right, but they've got to stabilize the situation, which means subduing, the inmate, and some of it's right, some of it's wrong. I mean, not everything's right, not everything's wrong, you
yeah,
know. Um, I mean, I don't understand why they don't think mistakes are suitable for Delphi, especially with a case like this that the Delphi's never had before, or never even conceived of before.
right.
Okay, I mean, mistakes happen. They happen to everybody. Things get erased. Things get deleted. Things are forgotten. Things are lost. You know, so you have that going on too. Then something else too. There's various people of interest out there, and when you take a look at it, I mean, you have to understand that these cops took in thousands of tips, and they had to clear a lot of people,
Right.
and they stuck with it. They stayed on top of it. They stayed on the job, and I truly believe they cleared all these people, and these people were innocent, and they had to have a way to do that. They had to have a way to do that.
Right.
As far as this Odinist sacrificial rites kind of thing goes, I mean, it's hard for me to believe that in the middle of the morning, I'm sorry, not in the middle of the morning, middle of the afternoon, these two girls are grabbed. They're taken to this place, below the bridge. They are, or somewhere else that some people have thrown out there, which I don't believe at all. I don't think there's any transportation here at all with these girls. They were walked wherever they were they were walked to their death is what happened.
Right.
So the bottom line is, you know, you're talking about the sacrificial rites and Odinist and all this and that and everything else in the middle of the day with other people out there, and all these people got together and said, okay, we're gonna do this sacrifice or whatever. And you know, I mean, there isn't any sacrifices before Libby and Abby. There are not sacrifices after Libby and Abby. And this is supposed to be some sacrificial cult called the Odinists running around. See, that doesn't make sense to me. It
Yeah,
doesn't make sense to me. Maybe
and
I don't think it's true. I don't think it's true personally, but
yeah.
some people do. But to me, it doesn't make sense.
And the theory that they were picked up, like at the end of the bridge, like forced into a car, for what? To be driven over like across the creek to the other side? Like, well, they would take them away, right? Not like over there.
No, no, no.
It
They'd take
doesn't
them.
make any
They would.
sense.
They would take them away,
Yeah, exactly.
never to be seen again.
Right.
Never to be
Yeah,
found. You know what
right.
I mean? That's why some of this stuff is really pretty crazy. And then the other thing, and I spoke to somebody about this a while ago, a reporter, as a matter of fact, and he asked me, he says, well, he said, with Richard Allen said during his admissions certain things that only the killer would know. For instance, that he killed the girls with a box cutter or something like that, right? Box cutter, he said. He said, you believe that? I said, well, I can believe it, but also there's such a thing as subterfuge. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, maybe he's trying to, just jinx the whole situation, make it up. In other words, tell a couple of truths, but manipulate by putting some mistruths in. Okay, maybe he says a box cutter, but maybe when the cops come back, this is just an example. Maybe when the cops come back with it, they'll say, "Oh yeah, he was killed, but it wasn't a box cutter, or they were killed some other way." So then that falls in line with the whole, psychosis,
Yeah.
psychotic break story. You see what I mean? It's not true. Like he gave him a little bit of truth, but
Hmm.
manipulated some key points of interest in the conversation. You see,
Right.
because a lot of times with the guys in prison, okay, I mean, everybody's playing everybody, I mean, you gotta be careful. These guys are major manipulators, all right? And I don't know him, and I don't know if he's a major manipulator or not, you
Right.
know? But I
But
think we're going to find out. I think we're going to find out. Go ahead.
I was going to say, whoever did it had 5 years to get rid of evidence, right? They had
Five
5
years.
years. So you could toss that jacket that you were wearing and get the same one again,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
So that they don't find any DNA on it. Then also,
No blood, no DNA.
right.
Right.
Then that, because I mean, there had to be, even if he washed that thing.
Absolutely.
And here's another thing. They find all these cell phones at his house, like 15 of them, except for the one that he had in 2017. That to me is bizarre. Where is
Yeah.
the one from
Yeah.
2007?
Go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Where's that one? If he saved all the rest of them, why did he get rid of that particular year?
You're absolutely right, Pam. And I have a problem with that too, because usually these guys have this obsessive quality, this OCD about them somewhere. We usually find something like that. They could have a whole closet full of panties or bras, or I mean, we carry Ridgway, he was like a rat pack kind of guy, and he'd look and find different tools or stuff or whatever he'd find, and they accumulate them. They're like hoarders of different things, right? So when I see some of the stuff that came out of his house, I see this kind of behavior, like this hoarding type thing, is this hoarding type behavior with the all these knives, okay, collection of knives, right? And then I think we have this collection of cell phones and other devices. So I look at that and I say to myself, okay, well, maybe you were right on that, John. Wonder if he has a big collection of guns too. I think he did have a good sized collection of guns, but I'm not sure. But then I see 2017 missing. See,
Mm,
somebody that's obsessed with collecting like this, they don't just throw 2017, the phone, the device for 2017 away. Why is it only 2017 that's missing? You
right,
know? See,
right.
that's kind of concerning to me too, you know? But again, it's not proof. It's not
Exactly.
proof he killed
I know.
anybody. That is
Exactly.
not proof he killed anybody.
Exactly.
Okay. But, looking at having the gun that fit, having an unspent round on the ground that matched the gun that he had, putting himself there in those clothes, seeing a van, the neighbor just happening to have a van up there that looks like that would have came in approximately at that time, kind of nailing down the time, looking at, this recorder for the state police that recorded the evidence, you know what I mean? And him coming out and saying on the stand undertaking after taking his oath that he believes that was his voice. The bridge guy was Richard Allen's voice. I mean, that's pretty wild. And what grabs me more than a lot of people, but this is just me, the initial letter he sent to the judge
Oh, yeah.
asking for financial aid and asking for an attorney to defend him, and him saying they were destitute, they did not have that kind of money and could not afford an attorney. All right. And
Mhm.
nowhere in that letter does he say he's innocent.
Yeah.
Now, that to me is weird.
Yeah.
That to me is strange. And I don't care who you are, because if somebody ever came to me and accused me of killing two little girls and arrested me and hauled my ass in, believe me when I tell you, when I'm writing a letter to the judge, I'm telling them I'm innocent.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Your Honor, I'm innocent. I can't understand this. Please help me. I need money. I can't afford an attorney.
Right.
Help me have a legal defense here to prove my innocence. He doesn't say that in the letter. See, that bothers me. It could be nothing. It doesn't mean he killed anybody.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
But it bothers me because I don't think that's normal human behavior
Mm.
when being accused of murdering two little girls.
Yeah, because it would be on your mind if you initially went to prison, like, hey, I'm innocent. I have to declare this, like from the rooftops over here, you know?
Absolutely. Let me get the press in here.
Yeah.
I'm going to sue these bastards. Right?
Right.
I mean, no doubt about it. I mean, I'd be going freaking out of my mind. Yeah. Hey, I'll fill your house up with lawyers. But and then we have the army, just stint in the army.
Yeah.
Well, what happens there? I'm reading about him in the army, and he says he was in infantry, or they said somebody came out and said he was in infantry. I'll say that's alleged.
Yeah.
No, he said he was in the army, but they somebody came out and actually said and that somebody did a YouTube. Who's that guy? There's somebody that did a YouTube. Well, don't mention his name. Don't mention it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, he came out and mentioned that he was in the army and he did his AIT. Okay, he was infantry, so he did AIT. Well, AIT is advanced infantry training. I happened to go through that
Mm-hmm.
during NAM. All right, and it's the same today because I went and looked at it. Okay, pretty much more sophisticated, and they learn how to fight with knives. Doing your hand to hand, you get hand to hand combat training, and some of that is with the knife.
All right.
All right. So now I'm thinking to myself, okay, so this guy went through the same training I did. I came out a trained killer. They taught me how to kill. They wanted me to go over to Vietnam and kill people, but I didn't go because I was in the National Guard and I came home. He was in the National Guard and he came home. But you still go through the same training. You still go through the same training as guys that are going over or heading anywhere but back home. He and I were in the National Guard and came back, but he and I went through the same training. It's the same. Training's the same. 90% go, maybe 10% come home, because they're in the National Guard. And that's how that went on, right? So now we have this guy that knows how to do this kind of hand-to-hand combat thing too. That's also very interesting to me. And the other thing that bothers me, and you and I've been watching this from the beginning. How many people of interest have we come across, and how many people of interest have had to be eliminated?
Right.
I can't count all of them in my head.
Yeah.
Right. All of a sudden, here comes Richard Allen out of all these other people of interest. Okay. Some of them killers that went on later to kill.
Right. Or predators. Some of them are predators.
And predators too. Sexual predators. Why do they land on the guy behind the counter at CVS when they had all these other people they could have landed on if they were looking for a goat, a scapegoat? So is there anything else you would like to say, Pam, before we break?
Yeah.
Folks, I want to apologize for going in and out here. There's something wrong with the internet or this computer, whatever the hell it is. I don't know. But I guarantee we'll get it straightened out for you. We rarely have this kind of problem. And so we've got, some technical difficulties here, as they say, right? And we'll get it straightened out for you. But Pam, I'm so thankful to have you today. Is there anything else you want to say? Say something before we break.
I know we weren't talking about this today, but the defense, the eyewitnesses that were there at the bridge, they're putting a lot of weight on the fact that some of them don't match. You know what I mean? But you got to remember, if somebody, correct me if I'm wrong, if somebody's all bundled up and layered up and has a hood up and a hat on and their face is covered, and they have a boots on that could give them a couple of inches, they all are seeing are eyes, right? Eyes and this man who could look very bulky. So, yeah, I don't know that you can really rely on somebody glancing at somebody, unless you had a conversation with them for a half an hour where you could really kind of study them. But for just a quick glancing at somebody on the bridge, to me, it doesn't matter that that their descriptions aren't in sync.
Yeah, absolutely. And to begin with, you're absolutely correct. Eyewitness testimony is not the greatest testimony.
Yeah.
It's good testimony, but it's not the greatest testimony.
But you couldn't even see his face, really. Bridge guy was covered, except for his eyes. And how do you know what age somebody is from just looking at their eyes, really? So
You can, and it gets even crazier because a lot of people don't see colors the same. Speaking me, and me, and visualization. I gotta, accept that for what it is. People see things differently. More people are visual, more people are auditory, more people are kinesthetic. On primary intake sense, I'm talking primary intake sense. Everybody's different. And not that, and the vast majority of people are visually oriented, but they see things differently. And how many times have we seen that in court Or I saw it one way, somebody saw it another way, they saw it another way, he saw it over here, she saw it over there. I mean, it's, it is not, it's good evidence, but it's not great evidence. And
Right.
I really think we have to jump in there and take that with a piece. We have to look at this thing going on here.
You having wind up there or something, or?
Well, you know what I'm saying? We may very well. Let me see. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, look at this. It keeps going out. Unbelievable. Sorry, folks. Sorry for the technical difficulties. So anyway, Pam, anything else before we break?
No, I just want to, like you said in the beginning, John, my condolences to the family. This must be such a hard time with this trial for weeks and weeks, and there might not even be an answer after this, so so hard. Yeah,
Hopefully, it's certainly going to be interesting to see the end of this.
yeah.
So many thanks to you all. Truly appreciate you. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Most importantly, is you take care of yourself. Have a great day. Stay on your toes. Be vigilant. We live in a dangerous world. And until we meet again, God bless and take care. Thank you. And thank you, Pam.
Oh, thank you, John, and the audience. Yeah.
Appreciate you so much. Thank you.